today. Maybe let's just zoom in particular into the experience of the smaller independent power players who are trying to be a part of this move towards renewable energy sources in South Africa. How would we describe the experience of trying to find funding and financing to be a part of this process?
Well, I think it's been a very positive process. The government started this a couple of years ago. There has been considerable interest from investors from around the world. Banks have embraced the concept and the program. In excess of 120 billion rand has been lent to roughly 70-odd projects. So there's been a considerable amount of interest, and it's been a very positive process of engaging and involving the private sector in the renewable energy space in this country.
Let's touch on that financing. 120 billion rand that you mentioned has been invested. Is this enough, or do we need more?
Well, there's a much bigger program at play. There's roughly 3,000 or 4,000 megawatts that have been permitted by the government, and there's another 13,000 megawatts to come over the next decade. So there's going to be a lot of involvement from banks, pension and provident funds. I manage a fund that raises its capital from pension and provident funds, and certainly there's a considerable amount of appetite to continue playing in this space. It's no secret that we're in the middle of an energy crisis in this country. And therefore, for as long as that continues, there will be a lot of interest from banks and pension provident funds alike.
Alistair, if we're looking at venture capitalists in particular and the potential that they have to fund or to plug the funding gap, to what extent are we alive to their key considerations and maybe responding to those adequately? In particular, I'm thinking from a policy perspective in terms of making the ground fertile for more investment.
Well, it has been very competitive already. You know, certainly some of the venture capitalists or developers that have looked at the space have, I think, found that the margins have come down quite considerably. It's a bidding process the government is running, and as a consequence of that, you only get through if you bid a competitive tariff. So some of the venture capitalists that are looking for high teens or early 20% returns are already finding that the landscape is too competitive, and as a result we're seeing larger, more utility style investors that are playing a role in taking up the equity stakes in these projects.
Maybe if you could walk us through the kind of returns on investments that investors could expect from this, Alistair.
Well, I think it varies from bidding window to bidding window. The government has been through 3 bidding windows. The first 2 bidding windows were really the icebreakers in this country, and as a result, I think returns were higher, probably early 20s. But certainly in the most recent bidding windows, those returns have come down, and people are finding that in order to be successful, in order to go through, you have to bid a tariff which obviously reflects in your equity return, and I think middle to low teens is the order of the day in rand equity returns.
Alistair, thank you so much for your time today.